Hello guys, and welcome to Supreme Ruler Ultimate. Today we have another guide. This one is about missiles, all kinds of them, including how to use them and what to keep in mind when using them. This game goes from World War I to modern day. I've loaded up a modern day scenario for this, but if you're playing an earlier scenario, just note you probably won't have access to missiles of any kind until the middle of World War II and only for a select amount of countries. Once you have Nukes research, which you would find research underneath your warfare text, for example, that would unlock nukes, and there are many different researches for all the different kinds of nukes and other missiles. You would then go to the missile unit designs and research yourself some missiles. Or you can buy them from other countries by right-clicking on them, going to diplomatic, and actually buying their designs if they have any that you don't have. Nukes are indicated by their little uranium biohazard thing sign here, and non-nuclear ones, as you see, don't have that. If you actually look at the description of nukes, generally you'll see technology requirements involving something that says nuclear, and there will also be a uranium cost to even make nukes to begin with, as opposed to regular missiles. As you see, nothing about nuclear anything in the technology requirements and nothing about uranium. And if you even hover over that little biohazard sign, it even says nuclear, at least once you open this much up. Once you do have missiles research, you'll go to the defense production tab, you'll go to build, and you'll select missiles. You'll find the missile you want to build, and then you'll just queue it up. You can even automatically do this like you can with all other units here. In fact, missile auto build is usually on by default. You have many settings you can pick here, and most of them are for missiles. So you can select what target types, like is the missile you're trying to build for ground attack, anti-ship attack, attacking buildings, saturating targets, or is it nuclear? That even has its own section. You can also click the platforms. I want to make land launch, air launch, naval launch, sub launch, or silo launch. You can enable or disable these as much as you'd like. Set quality or quantity. This is all if you're not producing it yourself. If you do manually select production, you don't have to worry about any of this. And missiles don't all get limited to one thing. For example, many naval launch nukes can also be launched via submarines. Unlike other units, you cannot go to the defense tab and then just look at your missiles in one of these tabs. There is still a way, it's just not a tab here. There's a button here that shows you all your missiles. This is actually the loading screen, and this is where you can see all the missiles that you have, although over here you can just click whether or not things will be auto-deployed and whether or not they can launch if the AI is controlling them. But since most of this is enabled from the very start anyway, you don't need to worry about it too much. But do note, if you are leaving most of your missiles automated, this is where you would come to change settings. Like if you want a missile to be used, you make sure that the launch authority is on. If you don't want it to be used, like this Tomahawk is defaulted to off, you just leave it off, and you can select to auto deploy them, and it will deploy the necessary things to deploy them as well, like launch platforms, like ships, if you want to quickly get a lot of these missiles into a bunch of units all at once. But there are, of course, better ways to do this anyway. One such way being the global rules of engagement. You can actually set as well whether certain units will accept auto-deployed missiles or not. That includes the one that are just automatically stuffed on ships and planes when they spawn in by your AI. Then, of course, there is the manual route. If we zoom on in, you'll see I've deployed a submarine just for this purpose. I have deployed in Ohio. Now, one thing to note when you are loading missiles is that if you go to the technical readout, you'll see every unit only has a designated missile capacity and a max missile size. So the max missile size is how large a missile can be that you fire off of this ship, and the missile capacity is a combination of that. You can have multiple missiles of varying sizes, but it cannot exceed this value. If you want to check the value a missile has, just open up its technical readout by double-clicking on it, for example, and then you can find right here at the top left its max missile size. This is its actual size. You can see this Trident nuke is 10, and this Tomahawk is only 3. So there are strategies with what missiles you research, produce, and load, and for what purposes. Once you do have deployed a ship or any kind of missile platform, you go down here on the defense tab when you have it selected to missiles. You can see the available missiles by opening up the tab for the type of platform you are using. You can see all of them here are available. On the right, we can see the platform itself. You could see your capacity for missiles here as well. So let's say I wanted to load some of these Tomahawks. I would want to do it manually, of course. Since we've gone this far, I could load just one missile. I have to unpause so you can actually watch it load. You'll see I've now loaded it. And I can load, for example, the entire group of missiles, and it will just fill this bitch up to the brim until it's maxed. And if I want to just get rid of all the missiles as well, it's really quite simple. One at a time, unload one missile. I can unload the entire missile group, and if there were multiple kinds of missiles, I could unload all missiles here. So for example, I can put one Tomahawk, one Harpoon, and then I could just unload all the missiles altogether. Once I have a missile loaded, it's really quite simple to use it. You just take the unit if you're manually using it, of course. These units will automatically use missiles as they are fighting, regardless of if you use them. Like I said before, you must be at war with the target you are firing at, although I don't think the ocean counts. So let's go ahead and right-click, fire a missile, and launch that nuke right into the middle of the ocean, and we will see that we have launched a strategic nuke, and we have hit the ocean, killing absolutely nobody. And it's really just that simple to use nukes. Now note, you cannot use silo nukes in this way. Silo nukes must be operated through the strategic targeting menu, but this pretty much covers every other missile in the entire game. So if that's what you're here for, congratulations, the tutorial is done. But for those that want to see more, we have the strategic targeting screen here. Now this is a little special. The strategic targeting pool is a macro way to control nukes specifically rather than other missiles. This doesn't give you the precision of simply right-click firing on a hex to target someone's capital or a specific barracks or something if they have a lot of troops there you want to try to wipe out, or specific facilities. This is what you use when you've basically decided to glass your opponent. So, for example, you would select your platforms, like all these Arleigh Burkes can have missiles. That's a thing. We have to unpause so it actually gets allocated. Capital ships, this is just an example. Submarines, we'll pick the rest of these sub-launched ones, for example. We would then select them and then move them over to the assigned missiles. As you see, you can move assigned platforms and assigned missiles. Once you have your platforms and missiles, and the silo nukes work just like this, except you don't need to assign a platform. Just by happenstance of having silos built, they will automatically be assigned there. So for example, if I go down here to the silo launch, I can move these over. As you see, there are no silos up here. They will just automatically work. And just to really show you that, I suppose, I'll go ahead and get rid of all the platforms and the sub ones. And we will go and select, in Central America, we will select Cuba. And now we can select how many of the nukes that we have assigned do we want to try to use. We can select 25, 50%, 75%, 100%, and that's of our assigned values that we've already put in. We then have two additional options. There are enemies. If it is checked, you will attack every single country that you are at war with. If it's X'd, then you will only attack your target. But there's another setting. If you check the allies, you will attack every single country that your target is allied with in a formal alliance. Mutual defense does not count. If it's X'd, then you will not. So if you only want to shoot one country, select a country and leave these X'd. If you want to shoot multiple countries at one time, that's where these come in handy. And then when you're ready to nuke, you just hit launch strategic attack, and it's gonna pop this up. This is basically saying that they're launching nukes back at you. The moment you nuke a country, like an AI, they just automatically launch nukes at you, but we don't actually have any silos. Those nukes are not gonna go anywhere. Cuba doesn't have any nukes, so that's not actually gonna lead to anything. But that right there is how you use missiles, how you make missiles, how you acquire missiles, and also specifically on the topic of nukes, that is how you use the strategic targeting section. One more note about nukes is they do come with penalties when you use them. Other nations will very much dislike you for every single nuke that you use, and you can customize the penalties actually when you're setting up a game, which I have a game settings tutorial in the playlist linked in the cards if you want to check that out. And your own population will get very upset if you use nukes too. As you see, my rating is super low right now, which would lower my tax revenue and all sorts of things. The overall performance of my economy would all get nerfed by using nukes, as well as my treaty integrity opportunity got completely fucked over, as you see, and my world market opinion is outraged because I'm nuking countries I have no war with, no justification against. As you see, justification can help, but there are still penalties specific to using nukes in general, separate to actually having war justification. And when you do use a nuke, war will begin, no matter what, because you cannot use a nuke without being at war with someone. And that's it. That's the end of this tutorial. I hope this was really helpful to you guys. If you have any ideas for any more tutorials on Supreme Ruler Ultimate, or anything you'd like to contribute, please leave it in the comments below. If you haven't already, please consider supporting the channel over on Patreon, in our Guilded server, or as a YouTube channel member. You will receive access to weekly shoutouts, among other benefits. Speaking of weekly shoutouts, thank you very much to all the supporters who make making these videos possible. I hope you guys enjoyed watching, and I'll see you on the next one.